Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin, Monday, April 18th, around 9 a.m. on my way into work. And I had a work from home day on Friday, which was massively interesting. Somewhat less productive, but still made all the breakthrough stuff that I needed to do to proceed with my work, namely successfully using the Google Python client API libraries, all the packages that let you connect to the many Google APIs and use the wonderful Python programming language against it. And the world is changing to a security model based on what's called the OAuth 2 login, which basically complicates everything because you either need a web browser in the picture or you need sort of a emailing or other communication means back and forth to plug in some codes or some authorization tokens. It's like double verify, very similar concepts. And so when your program is server-like and is not intended to have a browser in the picture, you need to at least do that once, and it will put some credentials. It will send you what you need to fetch something and put it on your machine semi-permanently with what's called a refresh token. So whenever the application needs it, it can re-log in. How this is better than any other authentication scheme? Well, tokens can be revoked. They generally have a default timeout. But once you have that refresh token, you're pretty much in business because you can always ask for a new one. So in using the library, well, first of all, backstory, in making Pipulate, I did not use an OAuth 2 library. I coded it myself, mostly because I really wanted to understand what was going on with OAuth 2 and generally avoiding extra library or package dependencies. You have to choose your dependencies very carefully because every one that you put in, you're going to have to live with for a very long time. Someone else's code, even though they're maintaining it, you don't really know if they're maintaining it. But in the case of OAuth 2, there's so much infrastructure based on it now, they're going to keep maintaining it. So I'm making the decision to, when I do a project that's coming up that I haven't nicknamed really well yet, but it's a more stable defensive outer loop to the Pipulate Python logic, the thing that essentially makes it scan left to right, top to bottom, and then repeat and go in and find any documents that need that done to on an hourly basis. That needs to be bulletproof and solid, even though the APIs that I'm connecting to are not really 100% available. They're flaky, they come and go. Yes. As many APIs are, and you know what? They're free, and they're letting you leverage infrastructure for free that you could never bring to the picture yourself. This is Google's big table data center architecture. It's massive, multi-billion dollar data centers backing up what you're doing. However, it is the free, Google Office, Microsoft Office competitor from Google that sort of sits on this and leverages it for everyday use where a little bit of flakiness is acceptable. If it doesn't work, you're expected to just refresh the browser and try again. So that's similar to the kind of reliability you can expect when you're connecting through the API. So things sometimes just don't happen, or if you have a really long job that's running and running, it might time out. And so I was using the Google provided OAuth libraries, among other things, to hit the previously Google Webmaster Tools, now Google Search Console API very successfully, was watching what it was doing. I took the external libraries it was calling that were actually part of the API package and brought them into my code so that I have more explicit oversight over what it's doing. It's kind of like in the C world compiling, doing a static compile to build your dependencies in. So I'll probably externalize it again in the future, and I probably won't do any modification to that code. And I'll probably use the pattern that's set forth there on Pipulate and make the make the Google API package a dependency of Pipulate. It's a reasonable thing. It uses Google Spreadsheets as its main user interface. So in for a penny, in for a pound, right? I don't know exactly when that work's going to take place. My Ziff Davis daily programming or daily work takes precedent, but it's guiding me in this direction. I did that during my work from home day on Friday because of some work I had to do. I'm making key discoveries that are going to improve the quality of my work, and I'm rereading my various books, including Fluent Python that I learned about through Michael Kennedy's Talk Python to Me podcast. It's a little bit advanced for me, so I'm reading this other O'Reilly book, which is called Think Python, and it teaches you how to think like a computer scientist using Python. And I also bought another book about enterprise patterns, and I really look forward to deeper, more fundamental understanding of best practices that are out there, and doing a better kind of mixture or weighting of best practices with my creative stuff. I receive a lot of criticism for my work, or I should say from one person I receive a lot of criticism where I don't follow best practices and think differently. You know, all the really creative and innovative stuff comes from unexpected avenues. The whole Ruby on Rails, revolution in programming, joyful frameworks, the concept that a quirky, non-corporate language from Japan, from just some, coder who did it for love, could become the cornerstone of all these enterprise applications today built on Ruby on Rails is just stunningly amazing, particularly considering all the traditionally anti-patterns that it's based on. It does a lot of stuff differently than every other framework that was out before it. Python did Django at roughly the same time, and it had a lot of impact. It's less talked about, but it is a similar framework, almost joyful, but Python, so it's got that going for it. And so I got some anti-patterns in my work, in the good sense. There's a good sense of anti-patterns and there's a bad sense. All the really kooky creative stuff is stuff that all the best practice people are going to criticize you for, but you just got to stick it out and follow through to see if there's anything to be gained that yields competitive advantage that other people aren't getting, because that tool doesn't exist yet, because nobody tackled the problem in